Okay, welcome everyone to our webinar today. I'm actually from Simplex. I am Richard Evans. I'm the head of global sales. Today we are going to discuss our topic, which is optimize your infrastructure with Microsoft Azure. Today we have some very special guests. We've got Darren Roberts from Infinigate, who's a partner account manager at Infinigate. And we've also got Georgie Hinchcliffe at Microsoft, who's a partner manager. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm just going to do a brief introduction about Simplex. We are an IT consultancy company. We get involved with the business, so we get involved with mergers and acquisitions. We do advisory services and architecture. We also get involved with some operational resilience. From a technology standpoint, we get involved with cloud and DevOps, digital workplace, things like Microsoft 365, also network transformation projects. We also have some intelligent automation where we use UiPath amongst our other technologies. In terms of our offerings, we have professional services, so we offer lots of different services depending on what the requirements are for the customer, generally in the infrastructure and DevOps space. And we also offer productized services such as disaster recovery, vulnerability services, advisory services, architecture and field force. We've been around for 10 years now, and we've delivered some huge projects in some enterprise and medium-sized businesses, and we have ISO accreditations in Cyber Essentials, amongst many others. And we are on some of the government frameworks as well. Simplex is based in the UK out of the Brighton office, but we also have entities in Poland, which is our European operation, in the US, and also India. Today, the topic of conversation is really for you guys to understand how you can get funding opportunities for migrations to the cloud, and also looking at modernization, rapid assessment, looking to see how you can get these Azure credits. Also looking at if you're already in Azure already and you're already consuming services, how you can save money actually in Azure by using a FinOps tool called Scout, which we offer managed service on. And then we're going to go into some QA and questions. So just a little bit of housekeeping here. So if anyone's got any questions through the presentation, which Darren's going to start in a minute, then you can put them in the chat window and we'll cover them at the end. So we're going to have we're going to cover the market view, the app modernization and the credit offer, and then we're going to stop for some questions, and then we go into the FinOps option, and then we'll cover some questions at the end as well. So over to you, Darren, and yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard. So I'm Darren. So I work at Infinigate Cloud. I'm the Azure commercial lead here. So Richard's already gone through what we're going to cover. I think from an Azure market overview, we'll just go to the next slide. We've got a few slides in here. I'm going to get some input from Georgia on just kind of for customers that are not using Azure or not too sure about it, just to kind of get some information to hopefully see how useful Azure could be for moving away from sort of on-premises or other infrastructure. So Georgia, do you want to cover a couple of these slides and then I can kind of pick up towards the end?
Yep, can do, Darren. So I guess just highlighting what's on the kind of PowerPoint, really. I think it's not amiss to all of us that obviously we face increasingly challenging times. Inflation over the past year, we've seen that obviously peak at quite high, and obviously now it's settled down a little bit, but it's still impacting a lot of organisations, each individual in many different ways. So we understand that costs have risen for a lot, not just the individual as you, but also businesses. We obviously also have the geopolitical and supply chain disruptions due to obviously the European, we've got Russia, Ukraine, obviously, and other things ongoing across kind of the world, really, that obviously is a global organization we have first sight of, and we see how that affects the market in many different ways. And then we also obviously have the talent shortages, as I'm sure you as businesses understand, and you see that and on the forefront of that as well, and labour costs as well, right? Like they have increased over the past year, and we see things increase from a costing point of view. But ultimately, the opportunity isn't slowing down, even with what I've just talked through. We kind of see cloud infrastructure spend to grow 70% year on year, which is a huge opportunity, right? For us at Microsoft, and we want to help you also be at the forefront of that technology, because the demands are ever there from your end customers, as well. So that's 17% from 10% as well. So the annual kind of year on year is only going up, and we project that going up even further, as obviously we're now in the age of AI as well. Hot topic, but it is very exciting. So of course, navigating changing markets and accelerating growth, we have to do as organizations. 72% of industry's pace of transformation has accelerated as a result of the pandemic. Yes, we all want to put it on the back front and kind of forget about it, but it is still impacting the way that obviously we do business, and IT and platforms can hamper agility as well. So 74% of migrated workloads have plans to be modernised, and we want to help you optimise and prevent overspending of that. And us at Microsoft, with the help of our wonderful partners like Infinigate and Simplex, are able to kind of lean in and support you there as customers. And then 85% of organisations will Darren, will embrace a cloud-first approach by 2025. And of course, we want to help you do that too, right? Making those right investments for the future, ultimately to help your businesses kind of grow and be at the forefront of change and so on. And there's some really cool statistics out there, on what will happen to organizations that obviously take that by the reins per se and kind of utilize it to their advantage, ultimately to help them grow, and help their businesses succeed. So of course, when we look at numbers and ROIs, it's no hidden feat that obviously using technology can help you do that. So shifting from an on-premise operations to the cloud favors, it ultimately helps your bottom line. So we've researched the findings, obviously, as Microsoft, to indicate organizations with Azure mature, over that 3-year period, they experience benefits of 13.1 million over 3 years versus costs of 2.3 million. In old world, and those benefits add up to a net present value of 10.8 million and an ROI of 478%. So it's huge opportunities, right, for partners, to help you as customers grow there and help your IT infrastructure along the way.
Excellent, thank you for that, Georgia. I'll cover these next couple here. So for people that are unsure if Azure is the right platform to use, there's a couple of good slides in here about Microsoft's sort of presence with Azure globally. So it's probably more now, there's more than 65 regions globally. I've got a nice sort of global footprint picture here. So it's always growing. So Microsoft is one of the biggest backbones in terms of platform on the planet, but it's vast. It's normally in every location that it needs to be. There are some rules, weird rules for sort of Chinese and other regions that you can't use unless you're actually within that country, but generally everywhere else is available for any customer to provision resources into very quickly. And then I like this one. It's a bit busy, but before we dive into everything that's available from a incentives and other help perspective, I like it because it shows the vast array of capability that Azure provides. It's a bit like a sort of I don't know, it's just very detailed, makes me a bit dizzy to look at. But most of our partners and most customers use a very small percentage of what's available, because they you don't come and use all of the power of a public cloud like Azure in one go. But the answer is normally yes if the question is, can Azure do what I need? So I just thought I'd just highlight that. It just shows you that's just hopefully to convince you on the strength and capabilities of the platform. So we'll move on to item number 2 on the agenda, which is talking about the AM program. So AM, Azure Migrate and Modernise, or AM for short, is a a program that Infinigate and Simplex are on. It's not easy to be on. You have to have some very advanced Azure specializations to be part of that program. So I think it's like less than 3% of UK partners, I think Georgia, are on the AM program. It's quite a low percentage, isn't it? So it's been designed. It's been around for about 7 or 8 years. I remember when it was launched over in an event over in the States. It was quite exciting. I think it's fair to say that moving to the cloud can be a complex process with a lot of moving parts. This is why AM was created, to kind of highlight partners that could help customers on that complex journey, to have the right skill levels to be able to help the customers. So with Simplex and Infinigate Cloud, customers can get the help they need, save some money because there's funding available, and then obviously gain confidence that what they're putting into Azure is actually fit for purpose and able to deliver the future needs for the customer. As I say, just to finalise on that again and reiterate the point, it's not a program that many partners are on, so it's fairly exclusive. Who or what is AM designed for? So I've got some examples on the screen there. So as it says at the top there, so SQL and Windows migrations from on-premise. There's still, I don't know what the stats are. Maybe Georgia might be it's difficult because there's still a very large chunk of customers in the UK and in other regions where they've still got quite a heavy amount of infrastructure that's on-premise still, and they may be running in a hybrid state. I still meet plenty of customers working with my partners that haven't moved anything to the cloud yet, apart from maybe for Microsoft 365 and a couple of HR apps or what have you. The rest of their infrastructure is sat on premise. So that's one of the key things that AM's designed for. Azure Virtual Desktop, so AVD, so AM can be used for that as well. So if a customer has, like through the pandemic when it changed how we all worked, and forced us into working to different ways, working remotely, but still needing to be able to access all of the same stuff that we did prior to the pandemic. AVD is a great solution for that. It can be used for sort of proof of concepts, workshopping pilots, that kind of stuff. And then the last one is Azure Landing Zone. So these are the kind of best practice environment that gets set up as a foundation to ensure that what's being put on Azure after that is going to be successful and meet the needs. So that's just 4 examples to highlight. I've got these, and you have to apologise. I have to apologise because everything that gets talked about in terms of funding for Microsoft is always in dollars, even though we don't work in dollars. But just to caveat that. So the good news is that the minimum threshold for a customer to qualify for AM funding is actually not that high. So $10,000 of annual Azure consumed revenue, or ACR. So that works out at about £650 a month. So I like to even dumb it down even further and kind of look at what does that actually mean in how many virtual machines. It's like 7 or 8 virtual machines. So these aren't big environments that so quite often a customer will start with their first workload. It might just be a couple of applications that they don't want to run on premise anymore for many different reasons, like the infrastructure's gone past the point of so I'm waiting in the lobby. The infrastructure needs, they don't want to refresh the existing on-premise infrastructure. They might want to start with their first small workload. The good news is it's a very low entry point to get the funding. You can see on the right hand side there's a kind of t-shirt size table of different fundings that's available. So the most common one that we get involved in is the second one down, the 25 to 125k a year. So probably the customers that are doing that have probably already done their first dipping of their toe in the water, and then when they kind of can trust what that Azure is delivering what they need, then they move some additional workloads. The payment, the funding. Just to be very clear on this, the funding on the right hand side means that the migration costs that you would normally incur, that you'd have to pay Simplex to help you to migrate to Azure, that funding on the right takes that cost away from you, the customer. So that's it kind of helps to free up that valuable capital expenditure for using on other things. So it's there as a to pay for the Infinigate Cloud professional service team, which means you don't have to pay anything at all, or at least most of the migration cost. So just to summarize then, the overall benefits of doing the AM project with Simplex and Infinigate is, again, we're just repeating that again, but it's offsetting those professional service costs and using, those valuable funds for other things that are, I guess, more needed in the business. You get the expertise that you need from Simplex and Infinigate. And it just allows you to kind of move fairly friction-free in a streamlined fashion to Azure. When we moving on to the next section, I should have probably put this on first. But as part of the AM program, we've also got something called rapid assessment. So this normally happens before a customer is ready to migrate. So what we can do, if you're unsure what Azure could look like for you, and you don't want to sort of spend lots of money on consultancy, we can deliver also funded by Microsoft, a rapid assessment, which is using some Microsoft tooling. So Azure Migrate is a software agent. We can actually work with Simplex and you, install that piece of software. It will actually look at what your infrastructure is doing and kind of look at how lots of other data points, and create a lot of very useful charts and information that we then convert into a report to show how ready you are as a customer to be able to move to Azure. So it will look at things like, Windows and server versions, are they out of support, that kind of stuff, and it will kind of give you a very good view as to, uncovering what you don't know about at the current time, and then providing you with a rough sort of 90% accurate cost for what it would look like in Azure, with some other business case stuff to help you make that decision. So you start out with a rapid assessment, which is a non-obligation funded project. The only caveat on this one, it needs to be for the second t-shirt size and above. But we can, if anyone's got some Azure potential Azure requirements, what we would normally do is do a kind of pre-sales call to work out if this was valid. If it is, you do the rapid assessment, you get the report. That then gives you a lot of very useful information before you then move to moving to Azure and then using the AMP funding. So that's that. The last section here before we take a break for some questions is around Azure Credit Offer, or ACO for short. There's a lot of acronyms with Microsoft. Sorry about that. So the ACO is a free, well, it's a great way to help customers to move to Azure, because what you can do this is prior to doing a project and actually committing to moving to Azure. So we can apply for a credit from Microsoft. In the top right hand corner box, we can get a proof of concept ACO, so an ACO POC worth $1,200, which is a non-obligation free credit. It's worth about I think it's 950 quid there or thereabouts in sterling. So this is before you committing to do a migration, but you want to kind of maybe test the water and have a look at a kind of proof of concept for maybe running an app in a small app in Azure, just to see what it does. So that credit is there for that. So you're not committing, but it's just a way of having a look. But it does have qualification criteria. It needs to be that the potential spend is $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year. So it's about £800 a month. So yeah, again, these normally we have a chat with you to qualify first and see what's the most appropriate way forward. So some of the other areas that ACO is where it's very useful is it kind of helps to lower that initial Azure spend, because without the proof of concept fund, you'd have to pay for that. It can actually quite often help a customer to accelerate their choice to going to Azure, because they've had that help and that free credit to kind of test things out and then get that confidence. But also, if there was a migration that didn't require any of the AM funding, and additional help, and it was a fairly straightforward migration, we can help with it will remove some of the costs when you're running like both platforms while you're migrating over. So that there are a few things that ACO can help with. So ACO, AM, and rapid assessment, the process we have is we have an initial call with you to understand the requirements, and it doesn't matter if you're already using Azure. This is any net new Azure workload even if you've got, you might already be spending thousands of pounds a month on Azure. If it's something new to bring into Azure, these programs potentially all still qualify for you. Okay, so we'll take a pause there. Richard, any questions?
Yeah, we've
popped up?
got a question in the chat from Praz who said, can other workloads like SAP qualify for the AMP program?
Yes, they do. Anything that's going to generate net new Azure growth, doesn't matter what application is driving it, what requirements driving it, doesn't matter. If it drives that additional spend on, where is it? That page. If it meets this requirement, I mean, from what I know about SAP, I'd be surprised if it didn't fall in straight into this bracket here, because generally an SAP environment is normally generating a good couple of £1,000 a month of Azure, depending on the size of the customer. So yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah, I did have someone else actually ask the question. Actually, I think it's one of our internal people. They've asked, how can Azure help in reducing overall infrastructure costs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it depends, because if I've seen in the past where mistakes have been made, where a customer just literally lists everything they've got on premise and does a kind of like for like server on the Azure calculator, which is an online calculator to build costs. If you just bring it over as is, it'll probably cost you more. But there's no point doing that. The right way of using Azure is you work with us and Simplex as a consultancy and use some of the more advanced features of Azure. So, for example, you don't always need to run 2 or 3 virtual machines with your SQL environment on there. There are different ways of running SQL in the cloud. So, for example, rather than using infrastructure, i.e. virtual machines, you use platform as a service. There's ways of just using a transaction for the SQL rather than paying for 2 or 3 virtual machines and all the expensive licensing for it. So just lifting what you've got straight into Azure, for some customers, it has saved money. For some customers, it's cost them more. It depends. But they're not, when you start out just by doing a lift and shift, you're not using the benefits of Azure. So that's why we recommend that we have that kind of free pre-sales call, spend an hour or two just understanding what it is you've got, because it's not just a matter of matching what you've got in Azure. But there's lots of other reasons why customers move to Azure. Probably haven't got time to go through them all today, but quite often when a customer's come to the end of their sort of 3 or 4 or 5 year cycle for their infrastructure, the cost of energy to run aircon and all that sort of stuff, and when you do the proper TCO, total cost of ownership calculation, quite often that can, even doing a like for like, it can actually be cheaper putting it into the public cloud, because Azure has got that large scale. You're not the higher scale something is, the lower cost it can be to provide the kind of the base parts of the service. So to answer your particular question, we need to get into have a kind of free initial sort of consultancy call. Won't cost you anything, no obligation. We can kind of show you what you're doing. It may not be, you wouldn't necessarily just replicate that in exactly the same way in Azure, because that could cost more, could cost less, we don't know.
I think there's one question here, but I think you've answered this already. Do you follow a lift and shift policy in Azure migrations? Do we pre-clone them on pre-prod and then work on to prod?
It all depends. It all depends on, sometimes it's appropriate. I had one last year where a customer's data center got flooded. So we had to take a restoration from the backups and get it restored and just do it as it was, because they were a large company and they couldn't, it was costing them like tens of thousands of pounds to be down. So they had to move as it was. They ended up spending, I can't remember the numbers, it was probably 150k a month on Azure. But after about 2 months, that all got right sized and repurposed and rejigged, and they're doing about 15-20k a month. So it depends on the circumstances. If you plan it properly and you've got time, and it's not you're not doing it because there's been a disaster, you probably don't do a lift and shift. There'll be some bits that have to be, but there'll be plenty of opportunity to use some of the more advanced features to kind of right size it and use some of the more sort of platform or function based services within Azure.
Okay, Matt's got a question. what are the most common compliance challenges Microsoft faced in migrating workloads from regulated industries such as finance or insurance?
Cool. I'm going to throw that one to Georgia. uh, I think.
Go on,
No,
Darren.
to say we can look at the I've forgotten the name of that site now. The compliance site. I've forgotten the name of it. There's a website dedicated to all the different accreditations and everything else from Microsoft's point of view. I forgot the name of it. Sorry.
It's the compliance site at Microsoft. It runs on trust, and that is something that we absolutely live by. And you can't. We have all of those kind of reassurances. Of course, we've got some of the largest enterprise customers in the UK all running on Azure. So I wouldn't necessarily say the compliance side is necessarily something you need to be concerned about. I think rightly so for your organisation, but we have it all there on the website, all the details of how we look to run that from a business point of view that you can go and review in great detail. What I will also say is we have obviously the cloud adoption framework and standards of process that we encourage all of our partners to go by when building, and customers when building out their Azure environment, to help look at things like compliance. Now, obviously, I'm here speaking with Infinigate and Simplex, and what I can reassure you is that that is something that they take into great consideration, and they have a lot of experience in this kind of area. So I can understand kind of the concerns per se for you as organisations, obviously, that may run in the finance and insurance sector. But what I also can reassure you that us as Microsoft kind of put that at the forefront of absolutely everything we do to help mitigate kind of those concerns and reassure all of our customers in that area.
Thank you for that, Georgia. It was the trust centre that I was referring to, with an ER on centre. So as I say, quite a large chunk of UK public sector organisations, even some of the more sensitive ones, are using this platform. So hopefully that answers that. Any more questions, Richard?
Yeah, we've got one more question. What are some common challenges faced during optimisation, and how can they be overcome?
Is that in the context of a migration or in an existing customer that needs to be optimized using the Scout platform that we'll talk about shortly?
Existing customer. Okay,
well, let's cover that within the next section, if that's okay. I think that will hopefully be answered in the Scout section.
Okay, has anyone else got any other questions? If not, we move swiftly on. I think that's all covered at the moment.
Fine.
Yeah. Okay. Cheers, Darren.
Thank you. Right. So moving on to the last part of the content today, which is the Scout platform. So as it says on the slide there, it's all SecOps, CloudOps, FinOps. The whole purpose of the reason why Scout exists is it's a tool, a platform that brings all of the key insights and issues that are happening in a customer's platform, and it's got hundreds of dashboards, with all of the insights in there. So managed service providers or resellers or whatever you want to call them, historically, they would need to spend days or weeks finding the issues within the native Microsoft dashboards or in the actual the customer's tenant. And by the time they found it and then present it back to the customer with the remediation work required, it's normally out of date and it's not a great use of everyone's time or money. So the whole purpose of, and the reason why Scout exists, is that it gets the data into Simplex's hand immediately. So they've got the insights, they're talking to you on day one about what needs to be fixed, rather than in the old world, the old way of doing things without these kind of platforms, a customer comes along saying, I don't think we're very optimized for cost, and I think we've got some issues on security, can you help? You'd have to pay a consultant to spend, I don't know, anything between 1 and 10 days, depending on how big the environment is, to kind of flush out all of the data, put it into sort of a report that's then can be actioned upon. It's not a very good use of time, as I said. Scout is an AI machine learning sort of based platform. It plugs into customers' environments with read-only access. It's looking at utilization and billing data. for Azure. It does 365 as well, but we're talking about Azure today. And it provides every single piece of information with sort of the insights and the recommendations and remediations associated with it. It pretty much immediately. Some of it's real time, some of it takes a couple of days, because that's the nature of how the platform pulls data out of Microsoft. So yeah, so just moving on to the next slide, just to give a bit more view. So what does it do? So I have included 365 in this because it does do both, but I know we're focusing on this today. So it's all about optimizing, securing, and controlling a Microsoft environment. So under optimized, so Scout helps to remove unnecessary costs and unnecessary spend within Azure. Out of the thousands of health checks that I've seen Scout deliver across all of our partners, the typical saving for Azure is between 20 to 30%, which I think doesn't sound believable. It's a very high number, but it just doesn't sound believable. But that's based on the trends looking back across 2,300 health checks of this calendar year alone. The average cost saving is 20 to 30%, and the customers weren't aware of that clearly, because otherwise they would have right sized it. So, you know, humans aren't as effective as automation. I think that's and it's by using these platforms that we can be more effective in helping our customers. The biggest cost saving I saw on the platform was £300,000 of annual spend so far. That's a lot of money. I could pay my mortgage off of that. From a security perspective, there's a whole raft of reporting built into Scout. So you start with a health check, which gives you the high level view to just kind of show what it's found, a bit like an MOT for a car. You get your report. And then when the license is activated for Scout as part of a managed service, the ability to report and keep the customer within the parameters within the threshold that they don't want to exceed. So for example, as a customer, I don't want my security score going below a certain notch. I don't want these security events affecting me. I want Simplex to be alerted and be on the phone to me on the day they happen. That's all possible. It's a bit like having dozens of smoke alarms sat around your Azure environment, and Simplex are effectively just pinging you and just making sure and making you aware before these things happen. And it provides some great features on governance, compliance, and auditing as well. And then finally, on the control on the right-hand side there, FinOps is very difficult to do for Azure. Certainly with the native tools, they don't provide, the Microsoft native cost management is very data rich, but it doesn't give you the insights. So Scout is very data rich because it's using the same data, but using all of its own algorithm, it's very insight rich. So it's possible to provide a FinOps view on a monthly basis and a day-by-day basis with laser accuracy for Azure. So your CFO can understand exactly how to do chargeback, showback, associate costs with certain departments immediately, pretty much in real time. FinOps is one of the key features of the platform. So there's over 500 Power BI dashboards in this platform. So humans can't really compete with that. Okay, moving on. As I already mentioned, the way that Simplex would help their customers is that you would onboard to what's called a health check. So it's a free service. It's read-only access. It takes 2 to 3 days. I'll put 3 to 5 there. It's normally 2 to 3. We say 5 just to be on the safe side. That your health check will be ready. It's a 10-page report, high level, and you can see an example here on the left-hand side at the bottom. So this customer was spending, I think they spent 60k in the previous month that this was done. This has found between 18 and nearly 50% cost savings. So the average is about 31 point something percent savings in these areas. So that's, at the worst case, there's 11 grand a month of savings. That's a lot of money. And then on the last page, it highlights the secure score. So as you can see on this one, their secure score is quite low. I mean, you really want to be, I think the Microsoft recommended is 65%, because the Azure secure score is only factoring in the security posture for Microsoft products used within that environment. So it won't look on this health check and on the Azure secure score, it won't look at, for example, if you weren't using MFA provided by Microsoft, but you were using Okta, it will mark you down because of that. but that's so 65% is a big enough score that your environment is probably secure enough because you've got other third-party things in place. But you can see on here on this report, it will start highlighting the things that probably should be done quite quickly, because that's a very low score. That, you know, the fact they've got MFA enabled and the secure is that low means that there's a lot of vulnerabilities in this environment. So yeah, so I recommend that if you've got Azure today, it doesn't matter what licensing program it's on, whether it's on an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, in the CSP, you know, with a partner elsewhere, or it's on a pay-as-you-go. It doesn't matter, or what geography that the customer's in. You can run these on people in Australia if you want. It's fine. It doesn't care what license program or geography at all. It takes about 5 minutes to onboard, and then your report will be ready, and then we can run through the findings with you after that. I've got a couple of other slides here just sort of showing some screenshots of the actual live platform when it's all turned on, but again, this is probably for another day to get into a deep dive for that. But yeah, so that's the end of the section on Scout. Any questions? Did that answer the question from earlier on? I'm not sure if it did, Richard. Do you want to read that one back to me about the review?
What are the common challenges faced during optimization and how we can overcome that one?
Yeah, I think actually I probably did cover some of that, because the common challenges are humans take a long time to go and find the data out, and they're not as accurate. You know, even the best, you know, we've got partners that have very experienced and expensive consultants and technical architects. They use this platform because you know, you're better having the automated viewing of and all the insights being produced very quickly, and then getting into the remediation work. So the common challenges are normally time constraints when you know, and accuracy if a human's doing this. So yeah, this platform will uncover all of the issues in the platform itself very quickly.
Okay, is it anyone got any other questions regards to Scout? Doesn't look like it.
No.
Okay, Darren. Thanks, Georgie. Thanks very much for everyone joining today. If you want to contact us, then please contact us at sales@simplex-services.com, as you can see on the screen. And thanks very much for your time. And we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.